Hello, Internet. I'm Jack Traven, and I don't have a catchphrase. With me here tonight is my friend Jude Devereaux, and we've just watched in IMAX the film Star Trek Into Darkness. This was my second viewing. I saw it a couple weeks ago when it came out first night, and for Jude, this is her first viewing. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and she isn't. So
I enjoy Star Trek, but I've only seen two, and both were from the reboot.
So this is going to be some very different perspectives. We're going to try to start with more or less just no spoilers for as long as we can do no spoilers. But honestly, for this movie, it's really difficult to do a review, especially a movie that has as many twists and turns as this one without spoiling. So my short review is, it's pretty good.
I enjoyed it. I wouldn't recommend seeing it in IMAX. It's
I felt like
made for IMAX.
I felt like I was making out with Spock and Kirk through
that
the
didn't really
whole
bother
movie.
me. I mean, I kind of like being able to see the detail.
I don't know. I actually that's something I don't like a lot about modern movies is that a lot of movies these days, they're very much larger than life. They're much closer than you're used to, like seeing from like movies in the 90s, like Jurassic Park,
you
or
see like pores and stuff.
Yeah, you see pores, and like in the 90s, I feel like we had movies that were like real life, like it looked like real life.
Part of the difference is just HD.
Yeah, it's a higher definition. Yeah, but I concur. Don't go see it in IMAX. It's not made for IMAX, and it's very eye strainy in IMAX. And honestly,
I got motion sick.
If I had not already had seen it in normal movie style, I probably wouldn't have understood what was going on a good chunk of the time. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to see what I can say without jumping into spoiler territory. So basically, this is something I can complain about without spoiling anything. My biggest issue with that movie, actually, at least in my biggest issue with the first 10 minutes of that movie, I felt like we hit a huge reset button. And the entire character arc for Kirk was reset back to the previous movie. Like, he's still an idiot, he's still naive and young. And I guess it kind of makes sense because, like, the events of the last movie, there wasn't anything in the last movie that should have really caused him to mature that much. Like, all he did was, kill this Romulan from the future and save the Earth and whatnot. Like,
good to know.
Wait, you saw that movie?
Are you talking about number one?
No, I'm talking about the first one.
Okay.
I'm assuming that.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't watch this review if you haven't seen Star Trek 11.
Wait, I'm so confused. How do the numbers work?
The numbers don't really work.
Okay.
So like the first 6 Star Trek movies had numbers after them, and then when they started doing TNG movies, which are 7 through now, they removed all the numbers, and a lot of cinemas have been numbering this as Star Trek 2, which is actually kind of weird because to me Star Trek 2 is Wrath of Khan, the one with Khan. But anyway, I don't know how much I liked, because I feel like that was, I know everyone watching this video is going to be like, really, you're comparing it to this? But that was a lot like in High School Musical, where like in every High School Musical movie, Sharpay goes through the same character arc. Like, she starts out being really bitchy and really mean, and then throughout the movie, she learns to be nice to everybody, and then it's reset when the next movie starts. But yeah, so that was I don't know, any other comments that you want to make with it before we jump into spoiler land? General sort of stuff.
I would like to say that the title was really apt. As silly as it sounded, it sounds really silly. Star Trek.
It was darker and grittier than
The whole movie, they're just they're constantly in darkness, whether they're literally in darkness or dealing with mystery
and moral issues.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
everything is dark.
Yeah, I want to say that what I really liked about this movie and what I think made it a lot better than the previous Star Trek movie is that it tackled a lot of topical and interesting issues. As opposed to sort of just being a fun action movie, and I think that was a big improvement. On the minus side, and this is another general complaint, not a complaint for me, but a complaint for just general movie quality. If you were not into the show and not into the original series of movies, there's a lot of references that you missed.
I mean,
you didn't notice, right? Like you don't know, but like there's a lot of stuff in there that was like shout outs to things that happened in the movies and things that happened in the show.
You think it's a bad thing?
I don't know if it's a bad thing. I think the thing
for
is
me, I didn't have any sense of continuity. There was no point at which I was like, what are they talking about? You know? And I'm sure there are things that I missed.
So I guess I feel like, and I could say this about the previous movie too, I feel like the problem with that, or where that can raise an issue, is that what can happen is you have these scenes that are sort of just shout-outs, and they might feel awkward. And I have no way of knowing whether they're going to feel awkward.
Can you name one? Or is it too
No,
too
I
spoilery?
can name plenty of stuff. In the previous movie, the point at which it really jumped out at me as being really like really like in your face shout outs was when Chekhov shows up in Star Trek 11. He's just like, Chekhov, Pavel Andreevich, and it's like it seems like he's just waving hello and like jump and doing jazz hands basically. In this movie,
that function just as a strong character entrance. It's
yeah,
fine.
okay.
And I think anybody who's watching that knows that these characters came from somewhere, even if they've never seen the original.
Okay, so that's not the best example. I think the best example I can give you in this movie, and I guess you don't notice that this is a reference. In this movie, there's a scene. This is going to be a minor spoiler, so I don't think this is gonna really like trip the line. But I'm just warning you now. There is a scene in which Scotty goes to a bar, and it's very evocative of a scene from Star Trek 3 where McCoy goes to a bar. And I guess, I mean, if you didn't know that was what happened in Star Trek 3, it doesn't really make a difference to you, it's a movie. But I guess it's sort of like, it's sort of just a feeling that I get that other people are missing out on something, and they don't really even know.
That's a really funny reason to not like shout-outs.
Okay, yeah, so
It's the opposite of most, like... Is there such a thing as a nerd hipster?
Okay, so let's go into Spoilerland.
Okay.
Alright, so now, turn off this video if you don't want to hear spoilers. I think we've said everything that you... Generally, like, you knew, I knew. If you're following me on Twitter, you know that I was going to say go see this movie.
I guess one more thing is, I would say that this movie was much more emotional. On the whole. I don't know if we touched on that, but it's a lot heavier. It has some of the humor of the first one and the lightness of the first one at the beginning, and then it just descends.
I sort of touched on that, but yeah, it is really emotional. It's not just the topical issues, but okay. So descending into spoiler territory, I think what we should do is we should just summarize the plot or just explain what happened. But and this is gonna eventually lead into a lot of issues and pluses and minuses. But so basically, what happens in this movie is this mysterious man named John Harrison declares a one-man war against the Federation, and he blows up a facility in London and goes off to, and he like transwarps away to Kronos. He's in Pakistan and we can't get him, so President Bush orders Captain Kirk to fire a drone at him. Like this is what I'm saying is that it's topical. But Kirk refuses to go and fire a missile at Kronos, which apparently, and this is one of the things I hate about these two movies, is everything is 5 minutes away. Like you get in the ship and Kronos is 5 minutes away. Vulcan is 5 minutes away. I don't get that. I don't think it was like that in the original.
I was really... Why is Vulcan still around?
No, Vulcan's not still around. That was New Vulcan. It was supposed to be like the colony that like where the surviving Vulcans have settled.
What?
It's probably SETI Alpha 5 too.
Okay.
See, that was a reference. I'll explain that later. But Harrison goes off to Kronos, and Admiral Marcus, who's now running Starfleet, apparently orders Kirk to go after him. Kirk disobeys the order to like shoot a torpedo at him and blow him up. Goes down to the planet and like somehow brings him back, and it's at this point we learn that.
Well, no, that's the important part.
Sorry.
Where he they're about to be he goes down with Spock and Uhura, and they're both about to be captured by the Klingon, and John pops out and
like
obliterates
is a
all
mech.
of the Klingon. And
he just goes all prototype all over everyone.
And they have all these missiles pointed at him, and he says, "How many missiles do you have pointed at me?" And they go 72, and he goes, "I surrender."
And then all of a sudden, this is the point at which I really should have known what was going on the first time I saw it, but I somehow didn't, because Star Trek fans, there were 73 people on the Botany Bay. It's Khan.
He's white now.
He's white now. And they did a really good job of explaining how it's Khan. The way they explain that it's Khan is instead the events of Space Seed. There was the original series episode where they introduced Khan. Basically, in that episode, it was the Enterprise that found Khan's ship and reanimated Khan, and Khan tried to take over the Enterprise. In this continuity, it was some other ship. And it happened because they were searching the wreckage of Vulcan after the events of the first movie. So Khan is now a white dude, and my theory is basically that they decided to wake him up and employ him in Section 31. Section 31, if you don't know, is the Starfleet CIA. And which is kind of cool that actually Section 31 showed up. That was a cool shout out. But my theory is that they did plastic surgery to make him not Indian anymore, because like that way no one would be like, that guy looks mysteriously like this 300-year-old genocidal madman. Like, I mean, if you look like Hitler in the future.
What?
Well, because, like, I mean, I'm actually...
Was Khan also a villain, like, when he got frozen?
Yeah, Khan was, like... So yeah, they did a bad job explaining, like, Khan's background as a character.
It didn't need it. We knew enough about Khan's motives that we didn't really need to know his background.
Yeah, so Khan was like a dictator. Like, he controlled, like, some portion of the world and was responsible for all sorts of genocides.
Oh,
there was like a war that's like never really fully explained what it was about, but it's called the Eugenics Wars, and it's implied that the subject was eugenics.
Do you think that maybe they retconned him? Because the way that he was acted, like, it was definitely somebody who was powerful, but it was not like, the vibe I got was not somebody who was ever, like, official. Somebody who was always sort of renegade.
Yeah, I guess in the original he was still really manipulative. I guess he was a little bit less like leader, like in the original portrayal of Khan was a bit more of a, like, he was the leader of the augments, especially in Star Trek 2. But yeah, I could definitely see that, and they had to retcon, because in the original continuity the Eugenics Wars happened in the 90s. But in any case. So like, it's Khan, and then all of a sudden Admiral Marcus shows up. He's got this big, scary ship, and it turns out that he's the real villain. He's trying to use this as an excuse to provoke a war with the Klingons.
And the 72 missiles turn out to be filled with the
72 other crew members of the Kobayashi Maru of the Botany Bay. The 72 other augments. So anyway, there's some big action scenes and whatnot, and in the end, we redo the entire ending of Star Trek 2, except now Kirk is on the inside and dies from the radiation. But instead of having...
Wait, hang on. That's too big of a jump.
I'm sorry. You take over.
It was Admiral Marcus, right?
Yeah, Admiral Marcus is the corrupt admiral in this movie.
The mission that Kirk had, because he captured Khan instead of deploying all of these missiles at Khan, he talks to Khan and discovers that actually they're part of this huge conspiracy to create a war with the Klingon. And Admiral Marcus shows up with his ship and says... I'm now going to destroy your ship because you won't hand me Khan.
His
And
wacky blue pajamas too.
wait, what?
Like the Marcus's crew all had like the weirdest uniforms. They were like blue and they had like arm pads and.
Oh yeah, I didn't really think about that.
I totally thought, because I was like, well, why do they have special uniforms? Like, why are their uniforms different? Like, and how is he secret? And there was also a reference in there to like private military corporations. Did you catch that?
Was there?
Yeah, there's a bit where like Scotty is talking to one of the dudes from the Marcus's ship, and
What are
he's
they called? Black Comet?
and he's like, are you Starfleet or are you private security? Like that was actually in there, and I guess that was a name.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like topical issues, man.
Well, he didn't have the patch, so I think he was private.
Yeah, I was under the impression also that like because it is also hush hush. But so I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were explaining the plot.
Well, it turns out that Scotty snuck onto Admiral Marcus's ship based on a conversation that he had with Kirk while he was at the bar earlier. It's important to know Scotty quit because he was so opposed to these unstable proton missiles being on the ship, and he kept asking Starfleet what was in these missiles, and they're like, it's classified, so he quit, and then he's in a bar in San Francisco, and
with his little like buddy alien friend that chilled with him.
And after Kirk talked to Khan before the Admiral showed up, he called him and said, hey, can you please check something out at this specific coordinate that I got from this prisoner?
It was like some IP address.
Yeah.
Apparently, in this universe, all space coordinates are formatted as IP addresses.
Well, it was for.
Yeah, I guess it's like. I'm not even gonna try to explain that because those numbers are way too short. But they're like way too short. Maybe it's like it's like quadrant sector. I guess they don't even have coordinates outside the alpha
you only
quadrant.
need 3 numbers for space, right? So the last number is probably a precision number.
Yeah, but like also, I mean, they're like 2-digit numbers. But okay, you know what? Actually, I'm sorry. I should say this now. The science, no, no. The science doesn't make sense. It never made sense. That's actually one of the things I don't like about this franchise is that you can pretty much the science is basically magic. But yeah, so Scotty has left the crew of the Enterprise because he's finds this objectionable. He in the meantime goes off and has his own little adventure and finds this ship. So at this point they conclude that the only thing they can do is they have to like wingsuit Kirk and Khan across the two ships.
We need to explain why Khan. Basically, Khan's the only one who knows the specs of this ship.
Right, and also because he's Khan. Yeah. So Kirk teams up with Khan in this movie, and. They jump into like the trash disposal, which I also found that kind of annoying because I think that does contradict canon.
How? Wait, what? It wasn't a trash disposal. It was just an emergency.
No, they totally mentioned there was a trash disposal.
Really?
Yeah, I remember Sulu saying like that we have aligned the trash disposal, and I remember from Star Trek Enterprise that they've established that they reuse everything, and that like they don't they can't dispose. Like they have to like keep stuff to like turn it into food and whatnot, which is kind of gross. But anyway,
maybe they don't dispose of anything normally, but anything abnormal.
Yeah, okay, like a alien space wedgie thing. Or, yeah, okay.
You know.
So anyhow, they shoot Kirk and Khan out, and I swear this scene was designed. This scene is gonna be in the video game. If you buy the video game, they even like named.
That was actually going through my head. Like this would be.
They name dropped like they were like you need your command compass or whatever it was called. It was like the navigation compass like thing like to steer through space and whatnot. And I know it's in the game. But anyhow, so they wind up on the USS Vengeance, which was the name of the ship that was like mentioned briefly. Although I don't even know if you can apply USS to it because it's not an official Starfleet ship. But
they get on the ship with the help of Scotty, and they work their way to the bridge, and it's Kirk, Scotty, and Khan, and they get increasingly suspicious of Khan, and so Kirk says, "Stun Khan," when we get to the bridge. They get to the bridge, they hold everybody captive, and they stun Khan. Turns out you can't actually stun Khan with a Khan gun, or a stun gun. So he...
Phaser.
With a phaser. So he ends up taking them all hostage, like everyone and he kills Marcus.
By crushing his head.
Yeah, just...
This is a movie where you get to see...
you don't really get to see that.
Well, okay, but it is implied that Sherlock Holmes crushes RoboCop's head. By the way, Admiral Marcus is played by the guy who played for RoboCop back in the 70s. But yeah, so at this point is when we get to see Spock shine in his like moment of doing the deceptive truth. Yeah. Where like Khan is like, I'll beam back your captain, and Scotty and Carol, who is there too, Carol Marcus, who, if you've seen Star Trek 2, is Kirk's baby mommy. In exchange for you beaming back the 72 torpedoes that my crew is in. So, they make the exchange, and then,
Wait, what? I'm so confused. Is Kirk's what?
Carol Marcus is the mother of Kirk's son.
Oh.
That was like a total like shout out that like didn't, I guess, yeah, that's another example of the thing. If you didn't know about it, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, it was clear that
But but Kirk, like in every female character, like. Oh, by the way, also we totally missed a really plot important point in this movie. Kirk has a threesome with 2 cat girls.
Yes, absolutely critical to the plot.
Oh my gosh, it was so, yeah. Anyhow, so they make the swap. The 72 torpedoes containing the 72 other Botany Bay crew members are on the ship. Oh, and then they explode because Spock rigged them to explode. And then, back on the Enterprise, Kirk's like, what? You just blew up those people? And, McCoy's like, are you kidding? Spock's a cold, but he's not a dick. And it turns out, at this point that what Spock has done is he's surreptitiously removed all of the cryotubes, beamed the torpedoes as is, and just like very subtly, never without saying that like he's beaming over the torpedoes. He's like, I'm beaming over the torpedoes.
No, without saying he's beaming over the
people. Yeah. Right, and that was pretty clever, and I actually like that was a little like, almost blink. There's a blink and you missed it like setup where he like.
No, for me I had a feeling right away that was going on, and the way he carried that scene confirmed it. But it seems like most people watched that scene and.
Yeah, I actually, the first time I saw it, I didn't exactly see that coming. I was like, because this movie had gone so dark into like just killing people, and like you see a lot of people die. And
I can also see Spock actually making the decision that blowing Khan up and blowing these people up, like logically would save more lives. But
yeah, but no, I actually really liked the fact that whenever stuff's blown up in this movie, whenever like and people are getting blown away, you see it and you feel it and you feel like. There's like real consequences. It doesn't just feel like a big dumb action movie where like a building blows up and nobody cares. But anyway, so the next thing.
Except maybe for the last scene.
Yeah, I mean, I felt it like in the last scene. I could see where you might like not. Or you like it depends on. So like I think this is kind of an interesting thing in the way we experience these kinds of movies. Is that like when I first saw District 9. Have you ever seen District 9?
No.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Want me to?
No, I'm not gonna spoil anything. But like, District 9 has a lot of really like emotional scenes in it. And the first time I watched it, I didn't really notice it that much. And then every time I watch it again and again, it gets more and more difficult for me to watch, and I feel more and more for the characters. Whereas with this movie, I felt like I had the opposite effect. Where the first time I see the big climax, I'm like, oh my god, that's horrible, all these people are dying. And then the second time around, I'm like, oh, it's a big action movie.
Oh, but we're not there yet. We should get there.
Yeah, we should get there. So anyhow, Kirk immediately, like... So the next thing that happens is that the Enterprise starts falling towards Earth in a really physics defying, bizarre scene in which it turns out that they lose the warp core and they lose all power, and all of a sudden the ship just falls. There's no orbit; they don't have that. It just falls. And in the meantime, Khan.
Well, I thought they warped out of there and the warp broke, so they were already moving. So they've been momentum.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
That makes sense.
Like they're dead stopped relative to Earth, okay, and so like they start falling, and Khan in the meantime, it has been vaguely mentioned the ship can be piloted by one person, and Khan just like tells Siri like set course for Starfleet headquarters, and Siri is like. Are you sure? Confirm destination. Warp core is broken. Engine's broken. Cannot guarantee. And he's like, confirm. And it's like, turn around when possible. And take the second left. But so like the big giant ship starts like shooting down towards Starfleet headquarters, and the Enterprise's warp core is like fucked. And so Kirk climbs into the warp core. He climbs up, he fixes the thing, and then they do the scene where Kirk and Spock kiss, and the needs. I was actually really mad when I first saw this because in the original movie, I mean,
you're not going to go into the fact that Kirk died.
I'm going to mention Kirk dying.
Okay.
And when Spock dies in Star Trek 2, he's like. He's stuck behind the radiation glass, like where he's fixed the thing, and he's like, "Is the ship out of danger?" And Kirk is like, "Yes, Spock," and then he's like, "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or of the one," and that line just doesn't turn up in the scene, and I felt like that was a shout out they could have thrown in, but so Kirk dies.
Oh no, making it different makes it so much more emotional because then he's not just parroting back what Spock did. He's like. And
then Spock goes and parrots what Kirk did, and yells, "Khan!" And that was. I think that was a good Khan yell. It felt really.
It was a little weird because like.
It's not normal for Spock.
That's the only time you see that level of emotion from Spock in either of these two movies. You never see it. Well, sans the punching scene, and you don't see that sort of like.
It's a little sad that you see that sort of emotion from Spock with respect to Kirk and not with respect to his own relationship with Uhura. But there's a lot in this movie where you don't really see their relationship, like.
For me, it's more just said like Spock doesn't care about himself. That's the biggest thing I pulled away from this movie with respect to Spock is that Spock really cares about the people around him. And could care less about what happens to him. There
was a lot of scenes like that.
Yeah.
That was definitely. I don't know if that really reflects the way I see Leonard Nimoy's portrayal of character. It's different.
Way different from Nimoy's performance.
Oh, by the way, I also missed. There's a really cool but like a really cool scene where Spock like Skypes old Spock. Like during a minute of downtime, and is like, hey, old Spock, did you ever meet a dude named Khan? And old Spock is like, it sounds like a deodorant, like Old Spice, but old Spock is like, well, like he makes a face like, oh fuck, and he's like, well, remember how I said I was never going to reveal to you the details of your future, and I can't. Break the temporal prime directive. But if you see this motherfucker Khan, you gotta kill him. Basically. But, okay, so sorry. The Enterprise starts falling towards Earth. Kirk saves the day. And then the Vengeance flies by and, is making this suicide run towards San Francisco and slams into a whole bunch of buildings, and then Khan jumps off of it, and Spock is like, it goes up to the bridge, and he's like, "There ain't life forms left on that ship," and Sulu's like, "The fuck you talking about? Nothing could have survived that." And Spock's like, "Yo, motherfucker's Khan." And Sulu's like, "Oh yeah, motherfucker's Khan." And so they're like, "All right, well we can't beam him up, but we can beam you down." So then they immediately I commented on this in the cinema because I was annoyed by this. Spock bolts out the door and runs to the transporter. Why doesn't he just like say, "Okay, beam me there, because like in Star Trek you can beam without using the pad.
Oh no, they talked about that. The transporter was.
It was malfunctioning, but like you can beam.
Oh, yeah, they got you
You can
there.
beam into the system and then beam down. It just takes twice as long, but it's faster than running to the room. Like basically, it's functionally like you beam to the transporter, but don't materialize. And then, but anyhow, so he beams down and with a gun in like the middle of San Francisco. No one is like alarmed by this for some reason.
Well, because they've all just.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. And he is wearing a uniform, so like he runs after Khan. They have this big epic like run across the city, and then in the meantime, McCoy notices that this one tribble that he's injected Khan's blood into out of like just morbid curiosity that was dead has come back to life, and he's like, oh, we can save Kirk, we just have to inject him with Khan's blood. And then so he's like, Spock, you gotta get Khan alive. And Spock can't hear him, so Uhura beams down and is like, get the fuck off my boyfriend. Bam, bam, bam.
With a stun gun.
with a phaser. She probably has a set to kill, and it just on Khan it doesn't work. And that fight was actually kind of cool, because like there's some bits where like Spock gets out of a grapple by melding with Khan. And that was
there's a weird scene where Khan is trying to do his head explodey thing, but it doesn't work because
Spock's
Spock
like, I'm
is
a
doing
meld
his
with
mind
you.
meld thing.
Yeah. But and Spock also does a nerve pinch on him, and it sort of works, but then he gets out of it. That was cool too. But yeah, so they catch Khan, they bring Kirk back to life, negating the need for Star Trek 13, The Search for Kirk. And we finish off with the scene of Kirk like giving a big mission accomplished speech as they put Khan back into cryo storage.
Yeah.
Which I was a little annoyed by, because I felt like they were like, we're gonna make you answer for your crimes. And I felt like a big part of the moral of this movie was like that people deserve due process, and that it's wrong to just kill someone because they're bad. You should try to bring them to justice. And then their solution for Khan was to put him back in the freezer.
I feel like there was a certain richness that this movie it had, but it could have been deepened further, that was sacrificed for creating moments of tension. And I think they would have been better if they had let go of some of the moments of tension and really worked out the plot, and worked out like the nature of the justice thing, and maybe showed us having Khan on trial. Although I don't really know how would you like restrain Khan? Like what would you do?
Yeah.
You'd have to do like Hannibal Lecter style. Like even that didn't work if you were. Hannibal Lecter doesn't even have superpowers.
But like Khan isn't like, I don't know, Khan's not like the Joker. Like, you can't, like, they can restrain him. Like, it only took two of them to take him down. Like, it only took Spock and Uhura to actually stop him. What did
they do again?
What did the two of them do?
Yeah.
They just kept tooling on him until he fell. Like, they just kept shooting him with the phaser and then smacking him over the head. But, I mean, okay, so, yeah, I pretty much agree that, like, there was some stuff that I feel like got left on the cutting room floor because of the need for suspense and drama. And I also felt that, and I don't know, I don't want to turn my whole blog into social justice time, but, like, there was way too many white people. And there's been a lot of way too much white people in Star Trek. In fact, I don't even know if I want to cross this line, but every time they used, like, and you see this today whenever they talk about the military, they always say men and women, and instead of just people. And I sort of felt like there was a lot of men and women when they could have said people. And I feel like there are like genderqueer people out there who would be like, why in the future they're just gonna say people. And then, besides, they call Vulcans people, and they call like aliens people and whatnot. But I don't know. I guess that's a bit more of it's a deeper analysis than I want to do just for like a vlog.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing because the original series was so known for being progressive and.
No, yeah, I mean, in fact, actually, I'll mention this. We were talking about this earlier. Is that there were no black people in charge, and that was really weird because like in the original series in 1966, when like they were still when the civil rights movement was still happening, and when there were still people getting like smacked with water hoses, like marching in the South. There was a black admiral who was the boss of Kirk in one episode, and there was Richard Daystrom, who was a black man who was the computer scientist who designed all their computers on that run their starships and whatnot, and it was portrayed as basically a race neutral society where nobody really cared about race or noticed it. And we saw that in this movie. They acted that way in this movie. They basically treated every species and nationality the same. Like it was a multicultural. It was a crew of like a Russian guy and a Scottish guy and an African lady and a dude from Iowa, and they're all trying to tool on this one British guy. But yeah, so there was, and I actually this leads into an actual Star Trek complaint. I was happy with the fact that I went in thinking that I was going to get one villain and I got two, and those two villains had like conflicting but similar interests, and there was like points at which it wasn't just like Batman and Robin where there's like multiple villains and it's just for fun. It's multiple villains, and it makes it that much more complex. But I was a little annoyed by the fact that the villain was a corrupt admiral again. Because, like, in Star Trek, that's a pretty common trope. Like, in Star Trek 6, Star Trek Insurrection, and I'm trying to think what other ones where the villain winds up being an admiral that's trying to do something, like, off the reservation. But, like, I guess we've also seen, like, power-hungry Klingon. That was the villain in Star Trek 3. Okay, so I don't know what else. I feel like I have a lot of feels about this movie. I feel like I have a lot of thoughts that, like, very specific to just, like, Star Trek fandom that I'd like to share. The people that made this movie, obviously, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it was very well made.
I kind of want to say it was tight. It was tightly scripted. The dialogue was great.
There was no point at which I felt confused as to why the characters were doing what they were doing. Well, very beginning, but that's not confusion like the deep, like something's missing here. It's sort of confusion as, what's going on.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's
the Inmedius Res
opening
was supposed to be. I want to see what this like group of people could do just with like what else they can make. And I was saying this to my friend who's a huge Star Trek fan, even bigger Star Trek fan than me. I want to see them try to do Cybok. You would be familiar with that. The Star Trek V is the worst Star Trek movie. It is like, basically Star Trek V was like what happened when they accidentally let William Shatner direct a movie. And I kind of want to see the plot of that movie done on a big budget with a good writer and a good director. Because basically the villain in Star Trek V is Spock's long-lost twin brother, who is like an evil evangelist. And he's like a televangelist who is like leading this movement of people to go to the center of the galaxy to meet God. And then he hijacks the Enterprise and they fly to the center of the galaxy and they meet God. And spoilers, God is a dick, and they kill him. And like the plot itself is not a bad plot. It's just that it was really poorly executed, and I'd love to see them try to do it well. But I know that's not what they're gonna do. They're gonna like do. I can't even think. I'll point this out for all my buddies out there in the Star Trek world. V'ger, the probe from Star Trek 1. So like at the beginning of the villain in Star Trek 1 is like a Voyager probe that like smashed into the Borg or something and has come back to Earth to try to exterminate all life because I think it got its programming mucked up or something. That in theory is still out there because the events that led up to that precede the continuity shift of the Nero going back in time, and the probe from Star Trek 4, which comes to Earth to find the whales, still technically out there. So they could just actually straight up do Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home with this cast, and I think it would be great. And they should keep it. They should make it be 1987 again too.
Perhaps overkill.
But yeah, I think that sums up our thoughts on that film. So yeah, I guess I'll see you next time. I'm Jack Traven, HalGallop.com.
I'm Jude.
And hopefully she'll be coming back for some more vlogs with me. I love doing them alone is fun, but doing them with company is even more fun. But yeah, see you next time.
Thanks for having me on.